Hi everyone! Welcome back to another Planetarium live stream. My name is Jessica. I am the director of the Planetarium, and with me tonight are the two familiar faces, but I will still let them introduce themselves, starting with Eli to my left.
Hi, I'm Eli. I'm a physics undergraduate student at UMD.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm a physics graduate student at UMD.
So tonight, as part of Spooktober, Eli is going to be telling us all about the history of Halloween, which is surprisingly astronomical, if you didn't know. So before I turn it over to him, if you do have any questions for us throughout the show tonight, leave them down in the comments. We'll be watching those and we'll answer them either when we see them or we'll take some time at the end of the show to answer questions. But with that, I'm going to turn it on over to Eli.
Cool. All right, well, give me just a second to get the screen sharing going. Okay, are we in the right spot here? Okay, great. So Halloween, like as we know it, is this like fun, spooky, sometimes not so lighthearted occasion. Just lots of candy and trick-or-treating and scary movies, which I love all of those. But I also really had a lot of fun going back and figuring out where Halloween came from, because like Jessica said, it's a very rich history, and it's also surprisingly astronomical. So that was pretty interesting for me to go back and look at. Halloween's origins are kind of like thick, milky, hazy at best, because they come from a mixing pot of influences from different cultures and different events, and that's really what shaped it into what it is today. But if we want to go as far back as we can and then start onwards, we would go back to the ancient Celts of Scotland. And our earliest evidence of something resembling Halloween is called Samhain, which is a Celtic festival that was practiced in Old Scotland that began about 2,000 years ago, as far as we can tell. And I'm also going to apologize up front. I don't know Gaelic, so I'm probably going to mispronounce a couple of these things.
I will say, though, I do appreciate the correct pronunciation of Samhain, because it is not Sam Hain, like so much of the popular culture shows and stuff like to pronounce it. It's a little pet peeve of mine. Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue on, Eli.
Yeah, no problem. I did my due diligence with that one. I hope I did it with all the other ones as well. Back this 2,000 years ago, when Samhain was first practiced, the Celts didn't have a written language. So there's no written depictions or any like tabulated history on the event, but there are like a bunch of artifacts and a couple like depictions that anthropologists have found. So we have like a decent idea of what it was. But before we talk about Samhain, I want to go and talk about kind of the astronomical significance. So we have our equinoxes and solstices, but then there are the 4 days in between each equinox and solstice, which are called the cross-quarter days. And to the Gaelic Celtic people, the end of summer marked the turn of the year. And because their year was divided into harvest season, which is spring and summer, and then the dark season, fall and winter. So the seasons were split up equally, and they would interchange on these cross-quarter days. The solstices, June 21st and December 21st, are the days where the sun is highest and lowest in the sky, respectively. And the equinoxes are the days perfectly in between these, where the sun is at an equal height on both days. And those took place on March and September 21st, or around there. The cross-quarter days, like I said, take place in between these, meaning that there are 4 of them. There's one on February 6th, one on May 6th, one on August 6th, and one on November 6th. So there was actually a festival for each cross-quarter day, and all 4 of these were called the fire festivals. So the first one that we're going to talk about is, again, really sorry about the pronunciation, Imbolc, I believe is close.
Yeah, that's correct, Imbolc.
Sweet. So that took place on February 6th, and that was a celebration of fire and candles, symbolizing the melting of the snow and kind of return of the summer. And the image here is, Jessica, maybe you can help me out here, Brigid's cross. Did I get that right? Sweet. And that's just a common Imbolc decoration. Okay, so again, possibly incorrect pronunciation incoming. Beltane?
Beltane.
Beltane. Okay, thank you. Which was on May 6th, was a celebration of life and like the greening of the earth, as well as like fertility, new livestock, marriage, stuff like that. And this image here is a modern festival in which it is common to host like fire dances and outside celebrations. And then the last one, okay, this is the one that I'm definitely going to mispronounce. Lunaza?
I
Close?
actually don't know this pronunciation.
Okay, then how about we just stick with that I did it right.
Sure.
So this one took place on August 6th, and it was to celebrate the beginning of the harvest and like grain cooking and stuff. So these are the other three. We haven't talked about Samhain yet, but Samhain was like the most important. It was like kind of the penultimate cross-quarter celebration. So now we can move on and talk about that just a bit. So gotta look through my notes. So Samhain, on Samhain, it was common to prepare for winter by storing food, getting firewood, fortifying your home, fixing stuff up like that. But it was not just for that preparation. It was also an extremely religious holiday. So with this like fierce cold winter fast approaching, it was time for worship, prayer, thanks to the gods that had provided food and good harvest, as well as appeasing displeased gods so as not to bring down a harsh and terrible winter. So during this time of year, the Celts thought the Milky Way acted as a bridge between the overworld and the other world, which is like the underworld, home of the deities, demons, stuff like that. And with this bridge in place, the souls of the dead and demons alike were free to traverse the overworld. So not only were people going there, but other things were coming back. And so that's where it kind of got a little spooky. So that kind of introduced this element of, you know, some also nefarious things are going on during this festival. Now I thought this was really cool. Part of the divine worship practiced during Samhain included the honoring of souls or people that had died in the last year. And a common way of doing this was called mumming, or I believe it was also called guising, in which people would sing or recite songs at doorsteps while dressed in like vague human costumes to represent the souls of those people that went onward. And the exchange was parts of the meals that people were having that night. So we can see a pretty strong correlation to trick or treat already. These people go, you know, doorstep to doorstep, singing, taking a little bit of food from each house. So not that hard to see where this tradition stems from. And this is like the first evidence of something we have that is akin to trick or treating. Another angle some anthropologists look at mumming from is that of like self-preservation. And so with the separation between the overworld and the otherworld thinned, some people would wear like disguises or like try to make things to throw people off so that malevolent spirits with grudges or anything like that wouldn't know who to target. That the other idea is that the songs that they were singing were like protective to ward away anything malevolent. So it was also thought that the reason people would share their meals was to symbolize that benevolent spirits, namely like spirits of family, were welcome to come in and join their relatives for a meal, which I also think is pretty cool. So kind of a little warning, this image that's coming up next is a little disturbing, but I think it's kind of funny. This is the first incarnation of anything like a jack-o'-lantern. So this was another common practice during this festival. So pumpkins weren't that big around there, especially because pumpkins aren't over there. But people would hollow out turnips and place candles inside of them to give light and like demark like pathways for people that were mumming that night. So when traditions moved to the Americas in the 1600s and 1700s, pumpkins were used because pumpkins were bigger over here. I actually believe pumpkins were only over here, but I don't know if that's totally correct. So I thought that was pretty funny. That image is kind of funny to me. So now we're going to talk about another thing that I'm going to totally mispronounce. And this was another pagan festival called Calan Gaith, and I'm realizing I just misspelled it on the slide right there. My apologies. So it was very much like Samhain, although it originated in a different location. So at this point in history, Celtic people were extremely widespread and spoke a ton of different languages. And one of these was Scottish Gaelic. Another was Brittonic, which was also the language of Welsh Celts. To the Welsh Celts, Calan Gaeaf was the first day of winter, and the day before was celebrated as kind of like a winter's eve. So on winter's eve, it was important to like exhaust yourself of summer desires, such as like fruit, partying, celebration, and also like some courting and flirtation, stuff like that. So bobbing for apples bobbing for apples originates in Calan Gaeaf, and it it's not the original, but it's an incarnation of it that is the byproduct of the Roman invasion of Ireland. The Romans introduced Ireland to the apple tree, which is a symbol for the deity of love and marriage, Pomona, also maybe mispronounced that. Those celebrating would bob for apples, and if successful, were foretold to be married in the next year. I hope that this girl was not foretold to be married because she looks a little young, but this was I thought this was a cute little image. So another thing was bonfires. So Calan Gaeaf was also a day of like frightening premonitions, and you're kind of supposed to be on edge a little bit. So the harsh winters on the British Isles would almost always claim lives. It was just kind of inevitable, and the British Celts believed that this could be foretold. So during the day, excuse me, I'm clearing my throat a bit. During the day, the festivities, feasts, and fun would go on. But then at night, the somber process of lighting bonfires began. So once the bonfires were lit, the townsfolk would write their name on rocks and then throw the rocks in. And once the rocks were thrown in, they would immediately run home, just like bolt right for the door. And their fear was of the tailless black sow, which was a sinister pig led by a headless nun or witch who would capture them if they weren't quick enough getting home, which is pretty terrifying to me. Something about the tailless pig just doesn't sit well with me. So now we'll talk about the Christian influence on Halloween. So many years later, in Rome and Italy, All Saints' Day, which is also called All Hallows' Day, was conceived as a day to honor the saints and martyrs that had served the Catholic religion. So while the holiday wasn't conceived to replace Samhain and its concurrent celebrations, it was strategically placed to do just that. So Pope Gregory IV, in an attempt to snuff out paganism in the continent, placed All Hallows Eve on October 31st, and All Hallows Day on November 1st, in hopes of kind of minimizing the importance of Samhain and instead bringing the attention to All Hallowtide, which was the week around All Hallows Day and Eve. So on All Hallows Eve, it was popular to mourn the dead saints in a rather frightening way. It sounds absolutely terrifying to me. Criers and commemorators would walk through the streets dressed in all black, not unlike nuns, screaming and wailing and crying to remember those that had been lost. And that sounds like a nightmare for me. In the Middle Ages, costumes on Halloween made a reappearance. So less fortunate churches were unable to pay for display paintings and statues and sculptures of saints. So they suggested that people dress up like saints. So kind of another little costume origin there. So now we'll make our way to All Souls Day, which was a day to remember Christians that were not saints. So All Souls Day was extremely similar, except it dealt with the idea of purgatory rather than heaven. So if a Christian was unbaptized, it was not believed that they would be permitted entrance into heaven, and All Souls Day was established to ease and pacify those souls caught in the in-between. So church bells were rung all throughout the day, candles were left out on doorsteps to give them light, and people tended to stay inside so as not to encounter these souls. The Protestant Reformation saw the end of All Hallows Day and All Souls Day, as they disagreed with the dogma of purgatory and pacification of unholy souls. So as the Lutheran Church rose in popularity, the Catholic Church fell, and as did the celebration, which is why it's not as popular. Another Christian influence is Dia de los Muertos. So this is a Central and Southern American counterpart to All Hallows Tide, and originally Aztecan celebration for the dead. So when Catholic Spanish conquistadors colonized Central and Southern America, they brought with them Pope Gregory IV's kind of like practice of a day of remembrance of the dead surrounding October 1st, except it kind of takes a different angle. Rather than mourning and remembering the dead in a somber fashion, it's more of like an upbeat celebration of their lives, and it's generally pretty lively. So the basis of Dia de los Muertos comes from a collision of these cultures, mixing the Aztec afterlife beliefs with the Catholic ideology of remembering the dead. And in fact, the Aztecs are believed to have celebrated a festival not unlike Samhain, in which they mourned the dead and worshipped the deities they believed could provide relief over their losses, as well as protect them from unpleasant spirits that weren't being remembered very honorably. Dia de los Muertos was and still is a pretty grand occasion in Latin America. Thousands of people disguise themselves as skeletons, kind of this symbol for death, and dance and feast and just pretty much make merry for 3 consecutive days, which is October 31st to November 2nd. One commonality between these 2 separate festivals in totally different parts of the world was this kind of stellar and astronomical connection. So the roots of Dia de los Muertos, resting with the Aztec celebration of Mictec-Acihuatl, which I almost certainly mispronounced as well, which is the governess of the lowest layer of the underworld. And so one is that they were both signaled as the Greeks knew it, the Pleiades star cluster, reaching its highest point in the sky, which happens right around the fall cross quarter day, right around October 31st. So when it reached its peak and began its path back down the sky, it was a signal to the Celts that winter was coming, and that this governess of the lowest layer of the underworld had reached her most powerful, and it was time to praise and worship. So now we're kind of looking at Halloween modern day. Europeans first began to colonize the Americas, albeit unpeacefully, in the 1700s, and the Scottish and Irish in the mid 1800s following the potato famine. So as the cultural melting pot became even more diluted and mixed, All Hallows Day and Samhain made a triumphant return, kind of hand in hand. Gaelic ancestors shared the practices of Samhain and Calan Gaeaf, and the Christians migrating from Britain and Spain and Italy all shared All Hallows Day and All Saints Day. And from this, Halloween was born. We saw a return of traveling from door to door, chanting trick or treat in exchange for food or candy, the carving of jack-o'-lanterns to light the trick-or-treaters and maybe the spirits way throughout the night. And we see bobbing for apples, and most importantly, spooky stuff like scary movies. Concurrently, Latin people began sharing the practices of Dia de los Muertos, and we have synthesized modern-day Halloween. So many of the popular horror movie tropes found in today's entertainment business can also be really easily traced back to these times long past. For example, witches, which also came from the Salem witch trials a little bit, and nuns being reminiscent of the criers and wailers walking through the streets at night. The headless horseman coming from the tailless black sow and her herder. The ghouls, ghosts, demons, everything like that coming from the souls traveling across the Milky Way at night. And the creepy crawlies and spiders and bugs and stuff coming from the real animals that actually threatened the people that lived in those times when those festivals went on. So yeah, I think it was really interesting to go back and kind of traverse through this really, really rich history of Halloween. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. So that is all I have.
Well, that was really awesome. I did not get to see that when you did it before.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that was really cool. Really well done. Good job, Eli.
Thank you, yeah.
I don't have much else to add. You were pretty thorough with that.
Thank
Lindsay,
you.
do you have anything?
No.
No? All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but if you do have any for us, leave them down in the comments. And while we give a couple minutes for that, let me give you a little bit of a peek at what's coming up over the next 2 weeks. So as I said, this is our Spooktober, where we're going to be doing these themed shows all month long. So on Saturday, we will have Bloody Skies, which is our PG-13 Spooky Star show. So going into more of the actual stories rather than the more nicer, family-friendly stories that we've had to kind of twist them into. Again, this is a PG-13 show, so parents, your guidance on whether your kids should watch it or not. But we will be having the next show, Wednesday of next week, be all about Harry Potter. And so it's going to be the Magical World of Astronomy, which is going to show all of the astronomical influences that went into the characters and a lot of the stuff in the Harry Potter universe. I'm really excited for this one. I think this one's going to be great. And then all of this is leading up to next Saturday, where we will be having our Halloween outside the planetarium this year. So we're going to be doing a drive-through experience outside the planetarium from 3 to 5 p.m. on Halloween Day, where we will be handing out goodie bags with some cool activities you can do at home, of course some candy, and then we'll also have some interesting, or I'm blanking on words tonight, guys, some kind of magical experiments to watch safely from your car. And we're also going to be testing out gravity and seeing what happens when you drop a pumpkin off the roof, because, it's science, right? So we're excited about that. And yeah, that's what we have coming up over the next 2 weeks, all leading up to Halloween Day. All right, well, I am not seeing anything else come in, so thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thank you again, Eli, for the awesome show. Be sure to check out our upcoming shows and come see us next Saturday for our Halloween event. If you are interested, we are still selling our Stellar Distancing t-shirts. You can get one for yourself at the link in the video description. But other than that, we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Stay safe tomorrow when I think we're supposed to be getting some more snow, because that's happening already. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.